Pheran kortham, kafan boltham. Vatan thovtham me taran mans. Me phernas mans, me kafnas mans. Me khunas mans. Cha azadi.
(1931) is most important because at this juncture, we had a new generation of youngsters who had come from different universities of British India and were influenced by the resistance that was going on over there. They initiated a struggle over here, first in the name of a reading room party and subsequently in the form of a mass mobilization, which was triggered by desecration of Quran at Jammu by the spies of the Dogra regime. Masses came out protesting against it, and there was one person, Abdul Qadeer, non-native of the place, who spoke to them at Khankahi Maula. He was arrested because he told them that they must go to the cause of this oppression that exists over here and they must eradicate it by rising in revolt against the Maharaja, despotic regime of Maharaja. He was charged and he was going to face a trial within the compound of Central Jail, Srinagar. Now, people assembled on the day of trial, which otherwise should have been in an open court. They wanted, the rulers wanted it within the compound of the jail. Masses demanded that trial should be open. And it was at this juncture that they were fired upon and 22 Kashmiris achieved Shahadat or martyrdom. And that was the most important milestone in the sense that after this, a formal political movement was launched against the Dogra despotic rule in the form of the first ever political party of Kashmiri Muslims, the Jammu and Kashmir Muslim Conference.
Interestingly, the root of the word, English word martyr, as well as shaheed in Urdu, Farsi, coming from Arabic, is also shahadat, the act of witnessing, which is the same as the root of the word martyr. So what is it that those people witnessed? How did they die? And my father actually, he started crying at that point, telling me that, beta, that they were shot, that there was a commission, Glancy commission, that was appointed to figure out the cause and effect of the event, and all of the shuhada, all of the martyrs, took the bullet straight in the middle of their chests. And it's interesting that now, whenever I recount that event, that momentous milestone of an event, I get teary-eyed. But at that point, I remember thinking, why is my dad crying? Well, you know, of course, it's a tragic day. 22 people were killed, but there was deeper logic behind it. And for that, we have to go back to the history of colonialism. Kashmir was colonized starting from 1586. It was in 1586 that Akbar colonized Kashmir, and we have not been free ever since.
Otherwise, if we see in Kashmir, the massacres they are continuing. Since 1989, we have that the Gaukadal massacre, we have Hawal massacre, we have Sopor massacre in 1993, then Brijbara massacre, Handwara, Zakura, that Khanyar massacre. There's a series number of the massacres which have taken place in Kashmir. But some events are very significant.
Where I survived, there were 53 people got martyred. So then there was Hawal martyr in which Maulana Farooq got peace to him. His soul. There I think more than 70 people got martyred. Then there was a Zakura massacre. Then there was a Sopor massacre. Then there was the Bijbara massacre. Everywhere, north, south, center, left, and right, we call it massacres and massacres. So every day in Kashmir would be a Martyrs' Day. But this particular day, this was a symbolic. This was the first thing when Kashmir stood against Maharaja, and they were killed and martyred. 22 people were martyred, and that day is still being celebrated.
On the occasion of Martyrs' Day in Kashmir, I want to pay tribute to all those and my family members who have been martyred seeking justice for Kashmir since July 13, 1931. The memories of Sayyid Mansoor Chota Bazar massacre perpetrated by the Central Reserve Police Force decades ago still causes a deep stir inside our hearts, my family and scores of other bereaved families whose kiths and kins were killed in the blood-curdling incident. I still remember it was Tuesday evening of June 11, 1991, when a 9-member CRPF party came charging from their camp at Sayyid Mansoor Bridge towards the Government Medical College at around 6:15 p.m. and opened indiscriminate firing with their automatic weapons all the way up to the densely populated downtown area of Srinagar. The indiscriminate firing by the security personnel took a massive toll of 32 lives of innocent civilians. Around 22 persons were also critically injured in the incident. The bullets hit shopkeepers, passers-by, and children. However, the official reports confirmed killings of 18 civilians and 6 injured persons. The security forces stopped 4 auto rickshaws near GMC, Srinagar, and killed their drivers who were still in their teens, as well as passengers who included my grandfather and his brother and my maternal uncle, who suffered life-threatening injuries. My maternal uncle was an eyewitness to this whole incident as he survived those bullet shots for about 4 years and finally succumbed. They were coming from a small business dealing in a nearby village and were supposed to join us to celebrate Eid together. This was unfortunately the second bereavement in 7 months for our family, because my uncle was also martyred outside his house by security forces on November 1, 1990. My maternal uncle, who was the eyewitness for this whole incident, said that these security forces, after firing those shots, thought him to be dead as well, and they pulled out those finger rings, took cash out of their pockets, things like that. I mean, this is horrible.
First heard about July 13th, 1931 from my mother, and when I read about Martyrs' Day, the first thing that I felt as a Kashmiri was that this struggle for liberation, this cause of Azadi, this defiance against colonialism, oppression and tyranny, is now a part of who we are as a people. this resistance against falsehood is now a part of our culture. It's a very essential part of our history. And it becomes important, therefore, to remember days like July 13th, because when you're faced with a colonizer that constantly seeks to distort, disfigure, and destroy your history.
And we have always been resistant. Our resistance is in our blood, including that in 1865, as the shawl baaf, the shawl weavers protest when people lost their lives, the very first organized labor and the movement for organized labor or labor rights. And then again in the early 20th century, at the silk factory. But 1931 was a particular where the goal was abstract. The goal was a life of dignity. The goal was a life of the freedom of religion, freedom to practice one's religion, freedom from indignity. One of the events that does not get mentioned is that in Udhampur there was an erstwhile Hindu person who had converted to Islam, and under the Dogra rules his property was sanctioned to him. It was not given to him, it was written to his brother's name. And that was one of the reasons why there was a protest that landed in a mosque, in a masjid on a Friday, and the Dogra police came and they stopped the giving of the khutbah, the lecture, the sermon before the prayer. So from that to 1947, when the Dogra regime tried and actually succeeded in pushing off anywhere from 1 million to 1.3 million Muslims from Jammu as well as from Kashmir. My family is from Srinagar. He managed successfully to push us out and engineer an ethnic cleansing, a genocide, so that the part of Jammu and Kashmir state that remained on the eastern side of the line of control under Indian occupation had a greater population, a greater percentage of Hindus and a smaller percentage of Muslims than before. And in some ways, if that was the full-fledged genocide part one, what we are facing in Kashmir right now is the full-fledged genocide part two.
Days like July 13th remind you of the fact that this struggle for liberation did not take birth in 2016. It did not take birth in 2010. It did not take birth on August 5th, 2019. This struggle for liberation has been intergenerational. And this idea of our struggle for freedom being intergenerational, this idea of resistance passing from one generation to another, this idea is the greatest source of hope for us, and it is the greatest source of dejection and despair for the Indian state, because the Indian state very well knows the fact that every imperial regime has fallen as long as people have continued resisting. And it's also important for us to realize that this struggle for azadi, this struggle for liberation, if it is alive today, it's because people have given their lives for it. And if this cause is still breathing, it's because people have paid the ultimate cost of resistance for the sake of this cause. And there's this slogan that people chant in Kashmir, I think that captures the essence of why this day of July 13th is so important for us. The slogan is, Shaheed ki jo maut hai wo qaum ki hayat hai, which translates into, the death of a martyr is life for the nation, and the death of the martyrs of July 13th has been and will continue to be a source of life and hope and strength for us as people.
Actually, a simple message that was given by one of the martyrs who was injured in 1931. He was whispering something and called Sheikh Abdullah. He told him that we are fighting for a mission of freedom of Kashmir. That mission we fought and we are sacrificing our lives. We have done whatever we were supposed to do. Now it is your turn to make sure that this mission is accomplished. That is the simple message which was given by one of the martyrs to Sheikh Abdullah at that juncture, and that message is the eternal message of this day for every Kashmiri until that goal of freedom of Kashmir is achieved. And during this oppression, they are struggling against this oppression. Those who are outside, they must not forget those who are over here. In a globalized world, everyone can contribute in every possible way. We have a person who is in jail in Bareilly, Uttar Pradesh, UP. His wife, who was taking care of the children, she died yesterday. So you can understand the plight of Kashmiris. This is one aspect, and then you can understand the plight of those who lose their sons, who lose their mothers, who lose their fathers every day, and who lose their habitat, houses, which get burnt or targeted in the gunfights over here. So this situation is there simply because a flame was set on by the martyrs of 1931, and people of this state are carrying forward that candle of freedom until now.
The bigger challenge for the civil society of Kashmir is to how we can institutionalize the memory which government wants to erase. How we can document and institutionalize the events which has taken place, like massacres, like disappearances. I mean, just if you compare about the disappearance in Kashmir, which are 8,000, that is equally the number of the Srebrenica massacre. But the Srebrenica event is being commemorated and it has become an international attention. But as for the enforced disappearance of 8,000 people in Kashmir, they are not the sons of the lesser god. So I think on this day, 13th of July, is very important to and other events also, how we can reach the international civil society, global civil society, the constituency of conscience, because we are living in the era of globalization. And in the era of globalization, the globalizing or responsibility is very equally very important. And in this way, we have only alternative left is that how we reach the conscience of world and apprise them what is happening in Kashmir and how the government is trying to obliterate the history of Kashmiris.
Sacrifices that people made on July 13th, 1931, and the sacrifices that people have been making ever since that day for the cause of liberation. The remembrance of these sacrifices for you and me and for the upcoming generations as well is very essential. It's because when you remember these sacrifices, you feel a very strong and a very heavy weight on your shoulders. And while the memory of Shuhada, the memory of martyrs can be a painful memory, it can be a heartbreaking memory, but more than anything else, it is a very empowering memory. It's a very important memory to have because it reminds you of your duty of fighting against colonialism. It reminds you of what the colonizer has taken away from you. It reminds you of the fact that there can be no dignity, there can be no normalcy for us living under colonialism. And the people who gave their lives fighting against it found dignity in death because the life under slavery is an abnormal life.
We cannot lose hope. We have to keep on fighting. Remember, straight in our chest, up front, and we are on the right side. Triumph will be ours. We will be free.
To keep their beautiful memories and martyrdom alive, we usually and occasionally talk about their simple life and their martyrdom in particular with our kids. Whenever we get a chance, whenever we listen to any speeches in mosques, in wherever, we discuss about it. We discuss about it with our kids with whole passion, so that to keep that spirit, keep that passion alive.
Remember this nation, where the color red, like a witness resolute, returns to the sky every day. This is a land of the oppressed, where the dead that rest in the greyness of graveyards pump colors of life into the living. The oppressor deems it easy to break the faith of this nation that laid down lives to accomplish a call to prayer. But we'll still remain when the oppressors think we're gone, like the sky painted red in our blood that emerges at each sunset. The martyrs continue keeping watch. The sky watches over dawn, and like them, we'll still remain long after the oppressor is gone.